Hello everyone, it's SpawnPoiint and welcome back to another video. And today we're taking a look at a new phone that launched very recently, which has got quite possibly the best camera that I've ever used on a phone. So this is the X60 Pro from Vivo, and it's got an AMOLED screen with a 120Hz refresh rate. Plus it's got a triple camera setup, a Snapdragon 870 processor and 12GB of RAM. So I'll do a quick unboxing and I'll obviously cover the top features of this phone. But then what we'll do is we'll take a closer look at some real camera tests for both the video and the photo. Now the night mode and the portrait mode is incredible. I've been impressed by it over the last week or so while being out and about. But the inbuilt stabilization, the Gimbal Stabilization is awesome. I mean, the Zeiss calibration that Vivo have with the X60 Pro and the X60 Pro Plus is a real game changer. But let me show you what this phone is capable of and some of the pictures I've been able to get from it, and you can decide for yourself if you think this really is worthy of best camera phone of 2021. First up, this is what we get inside the box. So we've got the phone itself, which we will take a proper look at in a minute or so. Then we've got a 33-watt charger. We've got some earphones as well as a 3.5mm adapter to use with those earbuds. We've then got a USB-C type charging cable, and then we've got a transparent hard case, the manuals, and a SIM removal tool. So it's great to see that we've got a charger in the box, something that we've actually got used to other manufacturers removing. Right, so here's the phone, and first impressions, this feels really slim. This could probably be the thinnest phone I've actually ever held. So it's got a nice low profile to it, and I quite like the rounded edges with the curved screen on the front. It instantly makes my iPhone 12 feel quite kind of thick and bulky. So the power, lock and volume buttons are all on one side rather than being on opposite sides, something that we're used to seeing on other phones. Around the back we've got a triple camera setup including a 48MP lens along with an ultra wide and a portrait lens. Now these lenses do protrude very slightly from the back of the phone, but this isn't anything new. It seems that most manufacturers are doing the same. Then there's some branding for both the Vivo and the Zeiss. At the bottom, we've got the SIM card slot, which is a dual SIM, and that's for 5G, and we've got the speaker. Now, unfortunately, there's only one speaker on this phone, so if you're using it in landscape mode for movies and gaming, it will only come from one side of the phone. But it's good to see that it does use a USB Type-C for charging. Now, you might also notice that there's no 3.5mm jack, even though the headphones that it comes with, well, they are 3.5mm. And that's because they've included that little adapter with the phone, something that the iPhone used to do a few years ago. Around the front, there's a very small cutout for the front-facing camera, and that blends in quite nicely into the screen, so there's no notch here at all. So looking at the screen, this is a 6.56-inch AMOLED screen, and it looks pretty sharp considering it's only a full HD Plus and not a full 4K screen. So you can see it's got a kind of like a 3D curved design to it, so the screen almost wraps around the edge of it, giving that kind of impression there's no border at all. And holding it, it feels and looks awesome. I love the borderless look. But what's really impressive is the 120Hz refresh. It's so smooth and it's so responsive when using it. Even just navigating through the menus or swiping between various windows, you can really see just how smooth it is. On top of that, it's got a 240Hz response rate, which makes using it for fast-paced gaming silky smooth. At the bottom of the screen, there is a fingerprint sensor, so while you're on the home screen, for example, you can actually see it here. And on top of that, we've also got a facial recognition. All of these icons on the home screen can be customized, so there are actually 6 different animation icons for both the face, the finger, and even when plugging it in for charging. This screen does support HDR playback and HDR10+, so any content that you watch on YouTube or your streaming apps that also support HDR looks great on this. But in terms of specs of the X60 Pro, it's got a Snapdragon 870 processor, 12GB of RAM, and a 256GB of storage. Now recently we've seen a few phones released with the new Snapdragon 888 processor. I actually did a review of the Red Magic 6 a couple of months ago, and that came with that one. But this is the new 870 processor, so it's not quite the same. It's actually more comparable to the previous 865 Plus from 2020. Now the X60 Pro is running the FunTouch OS 11, which is based on the Android 11 OS. So it looks clean, and you're almost getting the same experience as you would expect from Android 11. Instead, it's got some extra menus, and it's got some extra control center features as well. But it all looks, runs, and feels awesome. So now the biggest feature of the X60 Pro is definitely the camera. So I've been really looking forward to showing you what this camera is capable of. So I've been playing around with it over the last week or so, and I'm really impressed. So it's got 3 lenses, and it consists of a 48MP lens, which is your main one. You've got a 13MP ultra wide, and we've got a 13MP portrait lens, as well as a 32MP selfie camera on the front, not something that I use that often. Vivo have also teamed up with Zeiss to bring you improved optics. Now what that means is for their new portrait style mode, you actually get a really nice and smooth bokeh on your photos. And that's basically the blurred background or the depth of field that you like to see. And I'll tell you what, the portrait mode on this phone does not disappoint. So it's got an f1.57 aperture and a 50mm equivalent lens. And over the last week of using it, I've taken so many photos and I've been really impressed by them. So here are some photos that I've taken in the portrait mode over the last week or so in various different situations, hopefully to give you an idea of what this camera is capable of. Now I think they look pretty good overall. Every shot is really sharp and it focuses really well once you tap to focus, but it does have an autofocus as well. Now a really cool feature here is if you've taken a photo using the portrait mode, you've tapped to focus on an object, but afterwards you decide actually it's either not in focus correctly or you wish you'd focus on something else in the photo. Well, you can actually retrospectively go back and change that in the photo itself. So here, for example, I'm actually changing the focus point. I'm actually adjusting the depth of field as well. So you can really see here how you can manipulate the photo after you've taken it. I think this is awesome. I mean, it's not 100% accurate, but it gives you an idea of how you're able to tweak the photo after you've taken it. As well as the portrait mode, there's also the ultra wide lens, and that allows you to obviously create some really wide shots and some pretty decent photos. So again, I've taken some random photos over the last week or so to get an idea of what this camera is capable of. And this super wide lens is only 13 megapixels, but the results aren't bad at all. But the really impressive mode that I wanted to show off was the night mode. So these photos that I'm showing you now, these were all taken at night after 11 o'clock in the evening. So it really is pitch black. This is the evening. But the pictures have come out absolutely incredible. Vivo have called this their Extreme Night Vision 2.0. Now there's a little bit of noise in the pictures, but overall it does a great job of reducing that noise. A lot less than I was expecting to see. And these are really impressive. So as you're taking the shot, there's actually a countdown in the middle of the screen. So you can really see how long you need to be stood there holding that phone. Then there's a couple of other modes, including the panoramic, there's the long exposure, where you can really capture some totally different perspectives, and the UI to do all of this is pretty easy and straightforward to use. So overall, the quality of this phone, in terms of the camera and the picture quality, is incredible. It actually looks better when you take the photos off the phone. So because the screen itself is not a 4K screen, the pictures are better than what the screen can show you. So when I took the pictures off and actually transferred them across to my iPhone 12 Pro Max and my MacBook Pro, and they look better on there than they do on the phone itself. So overall, I am really impressed. So we know it's brilliant at taking photos, but what's it like at taking videos? Well, over the last week or so, I have been testing this out. Now, it does appear that out of the 3 lenses on the back, only 2 of the lenses can be used for video, and that's the main one and the zoom one, or the portrait one. It doesn't seem as though you can actually record using the ultra-wide lens, which is surprising because on the iPhone, for example, you can use all 3 lenses, but it seems to be only the 2 lenses that work on this phone. But either way, here's some content that I've shot from this phone in the normal wide lens at 4K 30. Now this phone can record up to 60 frames per second when you're in 4K, but the quality of everything I've recorded at 4K 30 has looked incredible. I mean, all of the other footage that you've seen in today's video, this was shot on the iPhone 12 Pro Max, so it gives you an idea and a comparison at least between the two. But what do you think? What do you think to the quality of what you're seeing on screen now versus what you've seen elsewhere in this video? I think it looks pretty good. But if you swap over to the slow motion option, it will actually record at 120 frames per second or 240 frames per second in 1080p. So here's some slow-mo content, but remember this isn't 4K, so it's kind of been upscaled for today's video, so it's not going to be quite as clean as the rest of the video. Another nice feature on the X60 Pro is it's actually got a gimbal or stabilization built in. It's got a 5-axis video stabilization, and I'll tell you what, it does make a noticeable difference when you're capturing videos. Now, as I've said before, I actually use my iPhone to record all of the videos on this channel, and I actually use that with an Osmo gimbal. But I'll tell you what, if the iPhone internal stabilization was as good as this phone, I would not need a gimbal. It really is that smooth. So I've been walking around, and at one point I was even running, and I've been moving side to side to really test out what this camera is capable of, and everything is so smooth. Now, sometimes with the recording, you can actually see a very slight tilt or shift with the lenses as it's trying to stabilize, but that's kind of expected with how fast I was moving. Overall, pretty impressed with how it handled the motion. So I'll quickly touch on the gaming side of this phone. So like with most phones, you can game on it, it's absolutely fine. The Snapdragon 870 processor does a great job of supporting any games that I've tested, including Call of Duty Mobile. Now, as I mentioned earlier, it has got the 1 speaker setup at the bottom, which means when you're gaming, it's pretty weird really, and does put you at a slight disadvantage as all of the sound is coming from one side of the phone. The only issue that I have found with this phone for gaming is the fact that it's so thin. It's actually quite difficult to hold. But other than that, it's great. And if you paired it with, say, a Bluetooth controller, for example, instead of holding the phone, that would be even better. I also talked about the speakers on this already, but here's a quick test of the mono speaker setup to give you an idea of what the quality is like. Now, I know most will probably use a headset or maybe the earphones that are included, but anyway, this is what they sound like. You can make a decision for yourself.
You are an infinite. You've lived and died 1,000 times.
The battery on this is a 4,200 milliamp hour battery. Now I couldn't find any official figures, but it lasted me an entire day before I needed to charge it, so that's pretty standard. It's capable of a 33 watt fast charging with the provided USB cable and the brick, but unfortunately is not capable of wireless charging. Now this might not be an issue for most, but for something that I've got used to over the last couple of years or so with different phones, it's a shame to have it missing. So there are a few areas of this phone that I do think could be improved on. Now one is definitely the speaker setup. I think the audio really lets it down. Now it's not just the quality, but there's the fact that you only get one speaker because we are so used to having two. There's also no ultra wide lens when recording videos, probably not a huge issue for most, but it would be nice to have had that. Now there's also no IP rating, so there's no way of knowing how resistant this is to water or dust. There's also no wireless charging, as I've mentioned, and it doesn't have a 4K screen. But for the features that you do get, it's a great phone. Now these are currently listed on Amazon at £749 and $770, and I feel that's quite a good price considering the camera capabilities that you're getting. Plus the features that it is lacking would probably add another $200 to $300 to the price. So ultimately, if you're looking for an Android phone with a very decent camera setup and that nice low profile design, this is pretty hard to beat. I like it, I've enjoyed using it over the last week, and the picture quality that I've actually got out of most of these portrait photos that I've taken, I'm really impressed by. I've also dropped a link in the description if you're interested in knowing more. Well, you've just made it to the end of today's video, so thank you for watching. If you drop a best camera phone in the comments, I will give you a thumbs up as I know you're still here. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel and turn notifications on so you don't miss my next upload. You can also follow me over on Instagram and Twitter. Until next time.